Okay there, we're ready to check some file sizes. It's really important that you check your file sizes early. I had students who didn't find out until second semester that a lot of their images weren't usable, so please check your images regularly. You want to make sure that you didn't accidentally change something on your camera, which is causing you to have small file sizes. There's a couple ways to do that, actually dozens of ways to do that, but I'm going to show you two right now. One of them is in Google Drive. So if you have a picture that you've already uploaded to Google Drive, you click on it, makes it big, you probably see something like this. If you click over on the right-hand side here, you'll see that there's this eye with a circle around it. That's the details button. If you click on the details button, then you get some extra information. It tells you that it's an image, duh, and then it tells you the dimensions, which is a little bit trickier because now we have to do a little bit of math, but don't worry, it's really easy math. Pictures that are printed need to be 300 dots per inch or 300 dpi for the resolution. Pictures that are on the internet or screens digitally only need to be about 72 dots per inch. So you can see that they need to be over 3 times as big when we print them if we want them to look good. So if it needs to be 300 dots per inch, you can see this dimension size here and convert it by divided by 300. So for example, if we want our pictures to be printed at 8 by 10, at 8 inches by 10 inches, at 300 dpi, or 300 dots per inch, then we're going to take the 8 times 300, that's 8 inches, times the resolution of 300, and that's going to be 8 times 300 is 2400. So the smallest number here needs to be 2400. This picture suits that, so I'm good to go. I know that my resolution wasn't too low when I took this picture. So that's one way you can just check it. You just want to make sure that the smaller of the two numbers here, obviously if it's a wide picture, the first number is going to be bigger. If it's a tall picture like this one, the second number will be bigger, but whichever one's the smaller of the two, so in this case, the first number needs to be over 2400 dots per inch. That's the Google Drive way. It does take a little bit of math in knowing that 300 dots per inch is how the resolution that we want to print them at. You can also reverse engineer that and take that 3456 divided by 300, and that will tell you how big you can print this picture without sacrificing quality. But we're not going to worry about that right now. Generally, we will print most of our pictures 8 by 10. There will be some instances where we want them to be square, so we still use an 8 by 10 paper, but we will end up printing them, trimming them off, and then they will be 8 by 8 when we turn them in. There are a few instances where something on the edge we don't want to cut off, so we want to preserve that full frame picture. This particular picture is full frame. So when you take a picture with a 35mm camera, the normal aspect ratio, that's the this compared to this ratio, is 8 by 12. So 8 by 10 means we're going to cut off something. For this particular picture, I know because I wanted to cut it off and print it at 8 by 10 because it's more cost effective. Costs less to print an 8 by 10 than an 8 by 12. But it just didn't look as good because it cut off this mast of that sail, and so it really was worth it to go with the full 8 by 12. So there are a few instances where some of you will end up having 1 or 2 8 by 12s instead of all 8 by 10s, and that's fine. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So if you're ever cropping and you see that the 8 by 12 is cutting off, or 8 by 10 is cutting off something that the 8 by 12 isn't, then before you cut it and crop it off, then give a shout out to me and I'll help you walk through that one. But now let's look at another way. So I'm going to close this. Okay, here we are in Photoshop. This is the Creative Cloud version. It's the newer version. It's a subscription-based version. Some of you might have the Elements version, which is a little more cost-effective, and you own that one forever. But I'm just going to demo this one real quick. It's the same principle on both versions, as well as several of the other older versions of full Photoshop, and I think even the pull-down menus are the same for both versions, so you can give it a try on whatever version you have. I am first going to open up a picture that I have. Then I'm going to go to image, image size, and here's the really key thing. You want to be sure that this button is not checked. The resample button, which on the other versions is just a different shape box, but you don't have this part up here, but you still have this part here. The resample image box, resample box should not be checked. So if there's a check mark by it, you need to uncheck it. That box will ruin the picture if you have it on. Now at the end of the semester there will be a couple instances where I tell you to turn on the evil box and there it is, you know where it is. But for everything else we're always going to leave it off. So with that off, the default resolution that it's showing is 72 dpi. Now remember I said that's a good resolution for like websites but not for printing pictures. So the resolution that I told you, do you remember what it was? Oh yes, 300. So changing that to 300. And it shows you, because these are all linked, that this particular picture at 300 dpi can get printed 11 by 16 inches. Sometimes this inches gets changed to pixels or some other increment, centimeters, all kinds of things. So just be sure that it is inches so that you are thinking in something that you can imagine. But 11 by 16 is definitely bigger than 8 by 10, so I'm looking good. This is a good resolution picture. So that's the way you can check it without having to do any math in Photoshop. I'm just going to hit OK. Didn't change anything because I had the resample button unchecked. If I had that resample button checked, it would have changed the image and you would have seen it either expand or contract in the window here. But it wasn't checked, so really it just changed the units that we're viewing them in. It didn't change the actual units of the image itself. So what I'm going to show you now that we have a picture, and I already told you, full frame pictures taken with a 35mm camera are an aspect ratio of 8 by 12. So this picture is uncropped, it's straight out of my camera, and I've got the rectangular marquee tool right here. So rectangular marquee tool, if you don't see it, it's probably because one of these other ones, if you see one of these instead, is active and the rectangular marquee is hiding underneath. So all you do is just click on that rectangular marquee tool, and then you'll notice that depending on which version you're in, these controls are either at the top or sometimes at the bottom. In Elements, they do appear at the bottom of your screen, but it's the same thing. You get the choice of normal, fixed ratio, or fixed size. So when you're using the rectangular marquee tool, normal just means that you can draw any size box that you want. Fixed size is going to pick the actual number of pixels, but what we're going to do is fixed ratio. So we're going to be printing our pictures at 8 by 10. That's the cheapest, most cost-effective way to print them, and so we're going to print them all as 8 by 10s. And I'm just going to start by dragging. Notice that I started on the outside. I'm over here, and I click my mouse button, and then I drag it over without letting go, and it shows me that this is how much it's going to cut off here. Now remember the rule of thirds? We don't want to have the goodness right in the middle of the image, and so also this is kind of an excessive amount of foliage at the top and only a tiny bit down at the bottom, so it's probably not the best choice there. So what you can do is you can either click somewhere else to make that go away. The escape key also makes those marching ants go away, as well as Control D if you're on a PC or Command D if you're on a Mac. And then you can just click on the outside and pick another spot. If this is going the wrong direction for you, this little button right here, the arrows, they will swap the direction. So now if I click this little arrow, it flips it back and forth, and notice that it's a wide picture as opposed to a tall picture. But I want a tall picture, so I'm leaving it at 8 wide and 10 high. Clicking over here, and if I have it selected, once those marching ants are dancing around, you can use the arrow keys on your keyboard to make it go up and down to move just a little bit. And once you have it in the spot that you want, you can go Image, Crop, and then that will cut it off where it is, keeping the aspect ratio of 8 by 10, which is the cheapest way to print it. Remember, if you're cutting off something important, don't hit crop, consult with me, because maybe that's an image that we want to keep as an 8 by 12. But one other thing that I want to show you is the guides. Remember the rule of thirds? That's pretty important. Everyone who's judging your pictures at College Board cares about the rule of thirds. They know the rule of thirds, and they check to see if you are employing the rule of thirds or if there was good cause for you to abandon them. So let's see what it looks like with the rule of thirds on. You can go over underneath where it says Photoshop, whatever version you're in, go over there and preferences. It is a little bit different on a PC, but I think on a PC you might find it under the File pull down menu, but on a Mac it's right underneath whatever version Photoshop you have, right next to that closed Apple icon in the upper left hand corner of your screen. So when you have preferences, and then guides, grid, and slices is what you want to pick. And then I've changed my default color, and yours is probably a different color. The colors mean nothing, doesn't matter. I've also already changed mine here. I've changed mine so that I have the rule of thirds, because a third is 33.3%, right? So I've changed my grid line every 33.3, and make sure this is percent because the default is not percent. So 33.3%, no, and we only want one subdivision. You can't put a 0, and so 1 is essentially what I thought 0 should be. So you change that to so that it's just 1. And then whatever color, if you have a really light picture, white doesn't work out so well. If you have a really dark picture, black doesn't work out so well. So whatever color you want to view your guidelines on is fine. Hit OK. And then they're still not here. That's okay. We need to tell the computer that we want to see them. And so that's under View, and then Show, and then you should see Grid. And then voila, I've got the rule of thirds. Now, we don't necessarily want whatever our picture is the main subject right smack dab in the middle, but we also need to pay attention to the horizon, where the sky meets the ground. This is a little bit of a tricky picture because we've got horizon line right around here, and we also have the horizon where the sky meets the mountains because this is in a mountainous area. So I'm going to, now this is one weird thing is that when you show your grids, the undo feature doesn't turn that off, so that's totally separate. So I can still undo my crop that I did a minute ago. Command Z or Control Z if you're on a PC, or you can go down to that edit. So I'm going to, and notice how my rule of third grids grew when I did that. So I'm just going to use my up arrow and move this up a little bit, and then I'm going to do the image crop again. And now I can see that these horizontal grid lines for the rule of thirds, well, I do have this horizon, which is the mountains and the sky, is right pretty close, you know, a little bit below and a little bit over, but you know, it's not straight because it's a mountain that's curved. So that's right on that one. And then right here, the shoreline from where the water meets the ground that you walk on is right pretty close to that one. So I'm pretty happy with where this one's cropped now. I don't have an excessive amount of foliage on the top or the bottom, and I think it looks pretty good. You can hit Escape or Command or Control D to get rid of, or sometimes you can just click somewhere else to get rid of those marching ants. And if those grid lines are bothering you, you just go back to View and Show and Grid. You can turn them off. You can say, yeah, that's a pretty good crop job. Now printing it this way is going to save me money as opposed to printing it as an 8x12. Also, it didn't cut off anything important. So again, if you're going to cut off something important, don't crop it off. But this one didn't change the I still have the whole reflection. It didn't change the integrity of the picture, and I'm still happy with this. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. But I do think it's always important to do a file save as, so that you have a copy. Be sure that you upload the appropriate one. Be sure that you're also saving it as a JPEG because College Board only wants JPEGs. So that's it. And you should know how to check your file size. You should know how to crop your pictures to an 8:10 aspect ratio. And we're going to be golden when your pictures are all done.